I finally got the chance to see the Elvis movie, and I should have seen this movie a lot sooner because this movie is a movie. Let's talk about why. Now, I know I'm a day late and $1 short with this review because the Elvis movie came out months ago. It's still in my local movie theatre. I'm starting to think they don't know how to delete movies because they still also have Top Gun Maverick and Jurassic World Lost, the terrible Jurassic Park movie. They've basically got all the movies that come out in the summer are still in my local movie theatre. But the movies now come out on VOD, video on demand, meaning you can watch it in your own home. And it's a movie that I wanted to see, but life gets in the way sometimes and you can't see every movie you want to see in the movie theatre. And then I kind of forgot about it. But now I got the chance to see it, and I kind of wish I'd seen it sooner. Everybody knows Elvis Presley. Whether you love his music, whether you listen to his music, you know the name Elvis Presley. You know the whole Vegas Presley. He's perhaps the most iconic character of all time, despite being a real person. And while I'm someone who isn't a huge Elvis fan, I haven't listened to his music all my life. He's not on any of my Spotify playlists. He's weirdly played a strange role in my life because at various points of my life, when I was young, when I was in primary school and then a little bit older and older school, secondary school, with different groups of people, somehow I kept getting the nickname Elvis. Now, pretty sure both times was because I wore a leather jacket, but that's a whole different story. My mother was something of an Elvis fan, although she was more of a Beatles fan, but she did like Elvis's stuff, and that's perhaps where I got most of my reference to Elvis in the past. I've seen some of the movies. I know all of the songs, of course, because Elvis played a huge role in the rise of rock and roll. So it's kind of weird that he hasn't had a bigger biopic sooner. And the interesting thing here is that Lisa Marie Presley and Priscilla Presley have both backed this movie and said it's the best telling of Elvis's story that they've ever seen. And there's been plenty of tellings of the story, just not on this level. The movie's directed by Baz Luhrmann, and he's had some good movies in the past, but this might be his best one in my opinion. Some of the cinematography in the movie, fantastic, blew me away right at the beginning. The frantic pacing at the beginning, borderline too fast pacing, is expertly done to show the whirlwind of a success that Elvis was. How he went from this broke kid just playing music for fun to being one of the world's biggest superstars in just a matter of years. And later on, they massively slow down the pacing, clearly intentionally, and use a far slower pacing as Elvis's career slows down and his life stagnates a little bit and starts going bad. The use of quick pacing to slow pacing was expertly done. And slow pacing is something that can only be done by an expert director, because if it's done badly, it just makes your movie boring. And if you watched this channel before, you could be forgiven for thinking I only like fast-paced movies because I often complain that the pacing is too slow in certain movies. Slow pacing can be fantastic when it's done expertly. And that's exactly the case here in the Elvis movie. The movie slows down and we feel that slowdown that Elvis experiences. Even though he's playing these huge shows and making mega money, everything around him was kind of falling apart. Now, one criticism I could see people having is that towards the end of the movie, they kind of just skip forward in time and go, here's what happened, here's the news reports, and you hear a news report saying Elvis's waistband has expanded and he's looking different and he's a stale act in Vegas now, he's for the old people in Vegas now. They kind of skip over the downfall, you've got to say, of Elvis towards the end of his life. Kind of in the same vein it did with Freddie Mercury's story with Bohemian Rhapsody. They kind of shy away from the darker stuff within the movie, but it's understandable. You're trying to promote this guy's legacy. The point of a biopic is to put these people on a pedestal and show how amazing they were at their highest moment, not show them at their lowest low. But you do kind of have to mention their lowest low at the same time. I think this movie had a good structure to it and paid a lot of respect to Elvis. Did show some of the darker parts, but not too much in detail with that. The story is quite interesting. Elvis certainly lived an interesting life despite dying so young. That line towards the end of the movie where he says to Priscilla, I'm not doing anything that people are going to remember. People aren't going to remember me. Even thinking that Elvis had those thoughts that nobody's going to remember who he was, and yet he's still one of the most iconic characters, famous people out there. Whether you love him or hate him, whether you listen to his music all the time or you've never heard one of his songs, you know his name. Everyone knows the moves, everyone knows the wiggle. I guess they got him famous. You more than likely know his songs anyway, because a lot of them were famous blues songs which still penetrate the music industry today. There's still various incarnations of those songs coming out today. The performances in the movie are pretty damn good too. Austin Butler obviously is the main one. He's playing Elvis. And my first thought is that he didn't look too much like Elvis initially, but in some of the later recreations of the scenes, he looked exactly like him. And his singing in the movie was fantastic. I know Baz Luhrmann shared some behind the scenes footage of Austin actually singing, and it sounds just like Elvis. You can see he's put a lot of work into the performance. Interesting thing here is that Austin Butler reportedly auditioned for the role in Top Gun Maverick that Miles Teller auditioned for, and Miles Teller subsequently auditioned for Elvis. And it very easily could be a complete switch there where Austin Butler was in Top Gun Maverick and Miles Teller played Elvis. That would have been an interesting switch around. In a parallel universe, maybe that did happen. It's another story for another day. Another YouTube channel, perhaps. Maybe it's time to start a conspiracy YouTube channel. That'd be pretty cool. There's a lot of conspiracies around Elvis. They didn't touch on those in the movie. Tom Hanks is clearly a standout performer as well, as he is in many movies, playing Colonel Parker. And it's an interesting performance from Tom Hanks because I didn't know too much about Tom Parker. And initially, when I'm watching the movie, I'm like, this is a very strange accent from Tom Hanks. It's weird for a performance because it doesn't sound from anywhere from America that I'm aware of. It sounds more European. That was my initial thought. Like, that's kind of strange. Is he doing a bad performance? And then later on, when they had that revelation, obviously a lot of people would know, but personally I didn't know that he was actually from Holland. I immediately thought that was a fantastic accent then from Tom Hanks, because that was exactly what my thoughts was, that it was a European accent around Holland, Belgium, somewhere like that. He had just enough inflection in his voice to make it sound Dutch, but also keep it kind of American. So his overall performance in that aspect was phenomenal. Only something an expert actor can do really well, because while everyone can do accents, not everyone can do accents convincingly. Tom Hanks is a master of it. And I felt overall his performance was really good. The moments when he needed to be evil, portray the dark side of Tom Parker, was fantastic. But it should be no surprise to anybody that Tom Hanks is a phenomenal actor. Won't be surprised at all when he gets nominated for Best Supporting Actor for this movie. Austin Butler's more than likely going to pick up a nomination as well for his portrayal. Don't think he's going to win it, but I think he will be nominated next year. And overall, the Elvis movie, it blew me away as to how good it was of a biopic, because biopics are something that can be very boring at times. Bohemian Rhapsody was good, but again, shied away from a lot of darker stuff. Respect, the Aretha Franklin story, that was fantastic last year. Ray is still the best biopic I've seen, but Elvis is a close second to that. And Baz Luhrmann overall in this movie is done phenomenally. Cinematography is great. The score is great. A lot of Elvis music in there, but not all Elvis music. The pacing is quite interesting, especially from a filmmaker point of view. If you're a filmmaker out there, this is certainly a movie to watch as to how to use pacing to elevate your story, not just keep a fast pace all the way through, or a slow pace, or a medium pace. The use of different pacing throughout the movie was certainly expertly done, as I mentioned there already. And Elvis so far is definitely my top 5 movie of 2022 so far. If you haven't seen it, I'd highly recommend checking it out, whether that's in VOD or if it's still in your local cinema like it is for me. I'd highly recommend checking it out. So when it comes down to giving a rating out of 10 for the Elvis movie, I would give it an 8 out of 10. I'm predominantly taking off 2 points because they didn't include the scene where he died on a toilet eating a cheeseburger. So we all want to go living the dream.